And all that time he ruled Australia, he stuck to those principles and handed his successor a huge surplus built largely on low business taxes, low personal income taxes, and arguably one of the most promising business environments on earth. Now, when he stepped down, it was kind of interesting. He refused any and all interviews, not only with the Australian press, but when he was hobnobbing as a former prime minister in Europe, with the European press. He granted his first interview to us, and the reason was, I like to think he likes me, but the other was to address what he thinks is a very important crisis and avoiding temptations, easy temptations to address it. John Howard from yesterday.
Let me ask you, we have the leaders from all over the world gathering in Washington. Amid expectations they do something. Can they?
Well, I think there are a number of things they can do, but there are also a lot of things we shouldn't do in the current situation. It's very much a time when the don'ts outweigh the do's. The first thing we should do is stop comparing what we now face with the Great Depression. I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness of the situation, but I think it is unnerving to the average citizen to be constantly told that we're in the worst situation since the Great Depression. Not because it isn't bad, it's because there is no comparison between the circumstances we face and the circumstances the world faced in the Great Depression. In the Great Depression, nations didn't have social security structures. In the Great Depression, central banks, such as they were, tightened liquidity rather than freeing it up. In the Great Depression, all the economic activity was centred in North America and Western Europe. There were no Japans and Chinas. So I don't think it helps confidence to keep comparing it with the Great Depression. I think the other thing that world leaders should do is reaffirm their commitment to open trade. The worst thing we could possibly do as the weeks and months go by would be to pull down any of the trade barriers that might be available to nations. I think it is very important that we avoid that. And I think it's also important to remember that international agreements can't paper over the inadequacy of domestic economic policy, that in a way the economic strength of the world is the sum total of the economic policies of individual countries. And I think the final don't will be don't overreact by re-regulating too much. I think we have to understand that there has been a failure of regulation in some areas, but the answer is not to throw out the baby with the bathwater and start heavily re-regulating the financial system either in the United States, Europe or anywhere else in the world, because there are a lot of explanations for what's happened and not all of it is going to be effectively dealt with by heavy doses of re-regulation.
Still, Mr. Prime Minister, what could happen this weekend is establishing global authorities to monitor